The media might have been okay pouring cold water on the ICE facility attacks, but they were more than happy to put the spotlight on January 6th. Now, strangely, no one's talking about the fact that the D.C. Metro is refusing to release their use of force reports from that day. So why do we have all this secrecy? Let's go ahead and bring in Blaze News investigative reporter Joe Hanneman, who wrote about this for theblaze.com, and he joins us right now. So, Joe, there are a lot of FOIA requests for J6. So let's dive into this latest one that you filed against the department back in May and what it means.
Yeah, I had a suggestion made to me by a retired member from MPD who said this would be a good source of information. Of course, there was huge crowds at the Capitol that day. There were many, many hundreds of Metro PD officers, and there were some problems with overuse of force. And we were looking to see just exactly how the department analyzed that. Now, they are supposed to keep an officer is supposed to make a report of any use of force, whether it's drawing their weapon or using an asp against someone, a riot baton. And so, it was something I wanted to see how they analyzed it and see if that matched up against the video evidence that we have of all these various incidents that day. So, and this has been, a policy MPD has had for a long time. It's a standard thing in most departments to document uses of force. So I guess I wasn't surprised because I have yet to have MPD actually give me anything when I request things via FOIA, but they should. This is clearly something that's in the public interest.
So what is their excuse is that this is they're law enforcement sensitive, quote unquote?
And that's the first time I've seen that term used in a FOIA context. We saw that a lot in January 6th prosecutions. That's a way that the FBI used. It was like an internal label in terms of restricting access to it. It really doesn't have any sort of legal weight to it. So for them to use that, and that term, it doesn't show up anywhere in the DC code. So I think that was just their excuse to throw that out there, that it may be sensitive if it shows something and shows an officer doing something wrong, certainly, but that does not mean the public shouldn't have access to it.
So how does this piece of the puzzle fit in just to the overall January 6th narrative, right? We're still trying to recreate everything that happened on that day.
Right. And there, we had some very serious uses of force by Metropolitan Police, but also Capitol Police. But I would have to say, on the balance, more in terms of Metro PD, which came in large numbers to help back up Capitol Police when the crowds overran the Capitol property. But we've had people that were shot with crowd control munitions in a totally inappropriate and probably illicit way, causing some serious bodily injury. We had Rosanne Boyland, who died that day, who was beaten with a walking stick by an MPD officer. And they've never accounted for any of these things. They haven't publicly commented. We have asked them to comment on them. They have declined. So nowhere have they told the public, this is how we analyze this, and this is why we didn't discipline this officer for striking a woman who was not only unconscious, but probably did not have a pulse, striking her in the head, in the face with a very hard object.
Yeah. So what happens next here? I mean, we just keep pushing. Because this sounds ridiculous. I mean, law enforcement sensitive, by the way. I can't get over that phrase. Law enforcement sensitive. Like you said, no crap, it's sensitive to you guys, but let's stop being sensitive and give us the information. How do we push them further?
And like so many things in DC, whether it's the Capitol Police or Metropolitan Police, their policy seems to be, we will give you nothing unless you sue us. And so I did send this information over to Judicial Watch, to Tom Fitton. This is the kind of thing that, nobody really has the track record that they do in terms of forcing government to cough up public interest information. So, if they see merit in that on their own, I certainly think that would be helpful, because when it comes to J6, Judicial Watch has really been the champion of grabbing information from Metro and releasing it to the public, whether it's the shooting of Ashley Babbitt or any number of other incidents. So having an organization like that champion it, but also just to keep filing things, so we make a record and appeal them if they deny them, which they, at least in my experience, they always do.
Well, let's go back to J6 protester. You were talking about this with me earlier today, Mark Griffin, right? He was a J6 protester that was severely injured by authorities, and he's still out there trying to seek justice. So can you give us an update on this?
Yeah, Mark was at the police line on the West Front on January 6th, and he went there. He wanted to talk to the police. So he spent a good half hour or so just explaining why he was there. He had to get out his driver's license and show it to an officer and say, I'm from Pennsylvania, and this is why I'm here. We have questions about the election. Our legislature has questions about this is the 2020 presidential election. And eventually, the police line moved around a little bit with, the Metro pushed the barricades back. But at one point, he was talking to some officers, and one came up through the crowd who was carrying a crowd-controlled munition launcher. And he raised it and he fired it probably 24 inches from Mark's leg, and point blank hit him with a shell that had 3 hard rubber baton rounds in it, and struck his leg, and it split his femur from top to bottom. It was a massive injury, and he had multiple surgeries to repair it and lost a year of his life. He did file suit against the officer and against the department, but the DC judge said that he can't sue the officer. She was claiming that the statute of limitations had expired, even though the suit was filed the day before the statute of limitations ran out. But they did not know the name of the officer until more investigation was done. In fact, we were the ones who eventually identified the shooter as Sergeant Frank Edwards. But so he had a big setback in that. And right now, I think his best hope for help is perhaps from the U.S. Attorney in D.C. To take a look at that and see if this constitutes some sort of an assault by the officer. That statute of limitations would go a little bit longer. So, but in terms of monetary compensation lawsuit, right now, I think he's pretty much out of luck.
That is unbelievable. Unbelievable. So this officer fires, his femur is fractured. He's out for a year, and he has had no justice, nothing from the government for this, other than saying, no, you can't sue. What's the likelihood that the U.S. Attorney takes this up?
Well, since the election and the change of the administrations, I would say it's improved greatly. Now, when Ed Martin was in as the acting U.S. Attorney, in fact, I had some discussion with him about some of these things, and he expressed a great interest in them. I don't know if Jeanine Pirro will be of the same mind, but there are a good handful of these very high-profile cases, and in all of them, the victims are not getting justice. They've tried suing either pro se, representing themselves. That usually doesn't work out real well. Victoria White, who was beaten in the skull and the face, just brutally beaten by a supervisor from Metropolitan Police Department. And she does have a suit that's ongoing, but it's an uphill slog. There aren't always attorneys that are willing to represent them because there's such a stigma attached to January 6th. There was a man who was pushed off of a second-story ledge, and he fell good 20 feet and absolutely just destroyed his ankle. And this was a marathon runner and a parachutist, and now he can't do any of those things because his ankle's destroyed. And he also filed suit, but I believe that one may have been tossed out. So it's the kind of thing that justice is probably going to have to come from the DOJ, which is ironic considering before the election, the previous DOJ was the one doing the persecuting of a lot of these people.
Right. Well, Joe, before we let you go, we can't not ask about the Minnesota shooter. and the latest on what's going on there. You did some great work reporting on this for Blaze. I encourage everyone to go read those articles. But what's going on with our friend Vance now?
Well, he was in court again just before July 4th. He had waived the preliminary hearing. He also waived his detention hearing. So in response to that, the judge found probable cause that he committed the offenses that are charged, 6 felony counts, and ordered that he would be held in custody until trial. And so the next step after that is this will be, if it's not as we speak, before a grand jury in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And the grand jury will take a look at this. I suspect they will issue more than 6 charges against him. I don't know what they might be, but if there possibly be some terrorism-related charges or enhancers, that will be interesting to note. But I would expect within a week, we're going to see a grand jury indictment be issued, and then things will start to proceed towards trial.
Joe Hanneman, truly one of the best that we have. Go read his work at theblaze.com. Thanks so much for your time, Joe.
Thank you.
Matt, I want to just continue on with the investigations that we do, because let me mansplain to you for a second. Nobody else out there is still covering January 6th, right? You have to go to Blaze Media and Blaze News to get the actual stories. And you can see here, people like Joe are still putting in the time and the effort, putting in all of these requests, trying to get to the bottom of this, because we know the American people aren't done with it, but the uniparty is the uniparty for a reason. There's a reason why they don't want us to know all of these answers.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Thank you for explaining.
Yes.
Womansplaining, is that a thing? I don't know. I tried to explain mansplaining, to my wife. She didn't listen.
Yeah.
So I think that this is key to what we do. And Joe Hanneman is a good example of this. This is someone who really spent a lot of time for some years before coming to Blaze. I mean, obviously years in journalism, but was following these stories at Epic Times at the time, his former employer. And Steve Baker, of course, similarly. And the point is, just like the American people, justice needs to be served here. And these stories are also just compelling. I mean, I want to do more of telling these stories, not less, because like we just heard, this case of Mark Griffin, these stories are compelling. It's shameful what happened. People do still care, and we want to see justice. And we're not going to see justice unless people in the media like us continue telling these stories. So it's really important stuff. And it's not only January 6th, right? There's a number of other investigations. I mean, the whole Representative Corey Mills story is not over by a long shot. It's unbelievable, the world in which we live and the people in Congress and what they're like. These are all important things that we take selective shots at. When we do take a shot at it, we don't stop. We go all the way. And that's why it's so great to be here with all of you.
Well, you can't, because if you do, then, the government, are you going to really go out there and rely on the government to tell you the truth and give you all the answers? Of course you're not. When we come back, we're going to get your answers and your replies on who you actually trust in the government, because I have a feeling, Matt, it's probably going to be a pretty short list. We'll get to that next.